I'm not supposed to know this, but the thing's not really going to work. The greatest living cellist was now teaching at Curtis, Piatigorsky. I don't know if you ever heard of Gregor Piatigorsky. I decided I wanted to play for him. My teacher helped me through his cousin who knew him and so forth and so on. They were members of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Went to play for him. And in the next year or so, I saw him whenever he was in Philadelphia, which maybe was 5, 6 times, I don't know. So I won a scholarship with him. But then I figured, we're already in a war. I was 4F, by the way, because of my glasses, my eyes. I got to get something to do that'll help something in this war or whatever. Went to the U.S. Employment Service. They sent me a couple of places. Didn't turn out. I was not hired, or I didn't want to work there. Then they sent me, now we're getting to what we want to be, where we want to be. Sent me to the Moore School of Electrical Engineering, where, quote, they're making something, we have no idea what it is, but it needs some people that can do some wiring. I said, I can do that. I was hired just as a wireman. I told them I didn't know anything, I couldn't do anything, because I wanted to protect my hand. And I wanted to work 8 hours a day and be able to go home and practice and whatever. After a short time, the foreman went on vacation. It was close to Christmas time. They had 100 out of the 210 accumulators that they were going to have. That's the 10-digit counter at the front end. Chassis about yay long, 20-some tubes. They found out that there was something not working. They had to modify the chassis. A lot of work. Joe Chedaker came to me and he said, you do the best wiring there is. So I'm going to sit here with you, and you told us that you can't read the drawings, you can't do nothing, you know. I'll sit here with you, tell you to take this wire off of here and put something, change it this way, every change to make. About 5 minutes later, he gets a phone call and disappears. I waited and I waited and I waited, and I said, I ain't gonna wait any longer. I took the drawing, I made all the changes, plus another major change on my own. The foreman before me, because when I came there, who was in charge of construction at that time, wanted the chassis to look good. I guess it didn't make any difference if it worked or not. So from every tube socket to the bus wires that were up there were parallel straight wires, and they might run across this way, and it looked very nice. But I said to myself, I'm not supposed to know this, but the thing's not really going to work, because you can pick up all kinds of stuff. So I made it look ugly. I went from here to where we're supposed to go. Everything. Joe came back. He said, well, it's time to get going. I said, you're too late. I made all the changes. But he was scared stiff, because if I can't read the drawings, how can I make the changes?
Now, you couldn't read the drawings because you didn't know how, or because of your eyes?
Because I said I didn't know how.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't want to get involved in anything other than wiring during the day and go home and practice.
Mm-hmm.
He checked it. Everything was fine. He said, okay, you're now in charge of construction of these things. You know, repair and changes in construction. So I then became the foreman of the shop.
That's what you get for not trying.
Wow.
And
right.
I laid out most of the, or I should say made the model of most of the chassis, all the other things, the divider, the multiplier, and so forth and so on.
So paint me a picture here. You're working in a lab.
This is if you go into the Moore School,
Yeah.
you've been there.
Yeah.
If you go up the steps,
Mm-hmm.
on the first floor. On your left was a machine shop. On the right was a lab. All the way in the back was a big, very big room where the machine frames were set up already. All of the wiring people and the engineers worked back in that room. I have some stories to tell you about that too.
So frames were the full rack?
The racks were there, yeah.
Okay. But you were working
on the chassis, all plug-in chassis.
And those chassis were about 4
Well,
feet
some
long?
were 20-some tubes, the accumulators. Then the dividers and the multipliers, I think, were like 10 or 12 tubes. They were about this long. But the same kind of arrangement, they just screwed into the back of the machine. The machine was operated eventually from the inside. It was a U-shaped machine. And I've heard various numbers. I don't think it was 50 feet long, but it was pretty long. I don't know how many cabinets, I don't remember. Short across that end, same length out here. People, the programmers, the women that put the stuff together, worked in there. And I was, as I said, in charge of all of the wiring and of all the chassis that were required for the whole machine.
So how many people were you working? You had a bench set up with a bunch of people around it?
There were, some of the names of the gals I can remember. There was Margaret Henshaw, Gertrude Gilbert.
Gilbert?
Gertrude Gilbert. There was this, I can't think of her name, but I do know that she had an Italian accent. She was American born, but no, maybe she wasn't American born. She may have come over with her very young, And there was I believe an older lady. They were young people. There was an older lady, Mrs. White, I think. Some of these things it's hard to remember. Hey, never saw them, spoke to them for the last 100 years. So,
right.
In any case,
you hired them and they didn't?
No, I didn't hire them. They were there before I came.
Okay.
They were the ones that I took over. I was now their boss under Joe Chedaker. Joe was a smart guy, and he was you could fool him as many times as you like by putting on the blackboard, call Mr. Smith, whoever it is, somebody at the zoo. Things like that. We did the wiring, we did the mounting of the tube sockets. One of them mounted the tube sockets where they belong. Somebody put in the bus bars, the heavy wires that went across, some long pieces, some short pieces. They knew where they go, and that's where you hooked your wires. Then I want to tell you about the function table, which we had to wire. That was a bunch of switches. That's all. I don't recall exactly how many. It was how many?
I think it's 200, or no, it's
was
200 numbers. Each number had 10 switches or something like that.
Yeah, that thing. That's the thing. Yeah, all these were switches.
I just recently found out that there were switches on both sides of the panel.
Both sides. You had it was a book. Two
didn't know
pieces
that.
were hinged. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, and you had 2 of these units, and that one that's shown on that picture you had here as the movable one. And they had to be set up, I guess, for each program. I never got involved in programming this thing. I was busy enough making it.
Yeah.
Just want to mention at this point in time that every once in a while the dean would come in. He always had a fifth with him. Always had a bottle with him. We had one little old guy working in the building who very frequently before lunchtime got a call over the intercom. Willie, come to the dean's office. So we went to the dean's office, went out to the state store, bought a bottle back. But I never saw the guy drunk. Never.
What was
Which,
it?
by the way, gave me a good idea. I decided he could walk around the building with that in his pocket. I could walk around the building with a pipe that I made from a milk bottle, rubber stopper with 2 holes, glass tubing going down to the bottom, put the bowl of my Frank Medico pipe on this end, fill the thing with water up to about that far from the top, put a short piece in here, tubing, rubber tubing, mouthpiece, and I walked around with that pipe. Actually, I tell you some of these things because I just want to show you that we all, no matter how hard we worked, everybody there loved what they were doing. And we were having fun.